the Nevermore narrative with your host, Count David von Ravenstein.
What'd you do?
Nothing.
Better not have. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nevermore narrative. This is episode 4. Still season 1.
When did season 1 start? A couple of years ago?
Yeah, like a couple years ago.
I think
a year ago.
Sometime last year in like January.
Some shit like that. I don't know.
Okay.
It's hard for me to get people to be guests on the show and want to talk about the things that, you know.
I think it's especially hard when you don't try.
I've tried very hard, Josh, and nobody wants to be on the show, so don't say that I didn't try.
Hey, you always got us.
Exactly. So tonight's episode, I think, George, you brought it up, right? You wanted to talk about doppelgangers?
No, you did. I brought up the last episode we talked about. The last episode we talked about was Skinwalkers. Yeah,
that was good. So tonight's episode is about doppelgangers. Now, for those of you who don't know, I guess commonly referred to, like in today's time, doppelgangers would be when someone says they see someone that looks like you, just, you know, in similar appearance or whatever. But the actual meaning of doppelganger is someone that isn't exactly you. That's your spirit ghost kind of thing. Like a weird projection of you, like an apparition of you that's existing in the same plane, but other people see it. It dates back. It's a German word. It means double walker.
Double
right?
walker.
Double goer.
Yeah.
double goer.
Yeah. So when people
You want me to read the definition for it?
Yeah, if you have it.
You got it?
Yeah, doppelganger. It's German is a non-biologically related look-alike or double of a living person, sometimes portrayed as ghostly or paranormal phenomenon and usually seen as a harbinger of bad luck. Other traditions and stories equate doppelganger with an evil twin. In modern times, the term twin stranger is occasionally used. The word doppelganger is often used in a more general and neutral sense, and in slang to describe any person who physically resembles another person.
David, I can tell you I've seen a couple doppelgangers of yours.
I've seen it. Dude, there's a guy at my work that looks just like David. I mean, I think he's like 3 inches taller than you, but he has the same facial structure, glasses, and he has the same leather jacket. I swear to God, I thought it was you.
Speaking of David's height, you know what's funny? My buddy Joey thought David was like 6 feet tall, and I was like, he thought you were 6 feet tall, and he thought you were like a big dude. I was like, he weighs like 145 pounds. like he's nothing. That's what happens when they only see your face.
What the fuck? No, I'm short, dude. Yeah, I don't know. Have you guys ever like come across your doppelgangers? Have seen anyone like seen you guys?
I hear it all the fucking time, but I've never seen anybody.
Josh, you have so many fucking tattoos. There's no way that someone's gonna see you.
That's what I'm saying, man. But people say, "Oh, did you go to this high school or whatever?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't go to high school."
Yeah, but the thing is, if they say you went to this high school, most likely in high school you weren't covered in tats like you are now.
No, I just get afraid because that's where I go pick up girls. They're like, "Hey, did you go to this high school?" And I was like, "You mean last week?"
Last week? Oh man, I wasn't there.
No, that blonde bitch still there though, because she fucking just shrugged me off.
So yeah, I don't know why that's always been a thing where like people see their doppelganger, it's a sign of ill omen or like a bringer of death kind of shit. I always like a lot of the things that I've looked up and read are saying that if you see your doppelganger, like turn around and run for your life. I'm like, why? It's fucking stupid. Like if I ever came across my doppelganger, I know I'm the evil one, so I'm gonna try and kill me if I ever come across. Hasn't happened yet.
Your doppelganger has to have more money than you do.
For sure. That's why I'm going to kill him and then take and like ruin his life in a different way. I got all new ways to think of it, you know.
Why wouldn't you just do the Family Guy thing when they run? Remember the two twins that grew up separate and they run into each other, and they're like,
"Oh, the old switcheroo."
The old switcheroo, like bang each other's wives. All right, and they just hand each other their keys. Like,
you guys remember that? You guys see that movie? Remember VHS Viral? The third one?
No, I only watched the first one. I didn't watch any of the
I don't think I
sequels.
watched any of them.
I'm pretty sure it
The
was
first one was really good.
all of them are really good. There's one of the shorts that they had in the movie was a guy who ends up opening a portal to another dimension, but that's an exact replica of his world. Except in this world, it's how most people believe in God and Christianity. In the other world that he opens up, it was people who worship the devil, and like it was a mainstream thing, dude. It was fucking creepy as shit.
That's
Damn.
fucking weird.
Yeah. So, you guys, were able to read any stories of people's doppelgangers or anything?
I got a story here, and let me see, where is it from? BBC. It's from the BBC. So,
How long ago back?
when was it? Fucking.
I'll see it if
I don't think
I'll
it
see
was-
if I can find
I
it.
don't
Let
think it
me
was
let
that
me
long
start.
ago.
I'm just gonna Google.
2011.
Just gonna Google BBC and see if it'll
Yeah, it
pop
was
up.
2011.
What happened?
Let me see here. So when I visited Ruger in autumn of 2011, he showed me a photograph of the building from which the man had jumped. So, I'm just trying to find this spot here. Okay. More than 2 decades ago, Peter Brugger, as a PhD student in neuropsychology at the University Hospital Zurich in Switzerland, was developing a reputation as someone interested in scientific explanations of so-called paranormal experiences. A fellow neurologist who had been treating a 21-year-old man for seizures sent him to Brugger. The young man, who worked as a waiter and lived in the canton of Zurich, had very nearly killed himself one day when he found himself face to face with his doppelganger.
No way.
Shit.
Yeah. So the incident seemed to have started when the young man had stopped taking some of it. See, this is where it gets a little. Maybe he was just tripping balls because he was on medication and he stopped taking his medication. So he was on taking his. He missed taking his anticonvulsant. So I guess he had convulsions.
Caesars?
Yeah. So one morning, instead of going to work, he drank copious amounts of beer and stayed in bed. So I don't know if that's gonna help.
Sounds like a Sunday night to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
But it turned out to be a harrowing lie. This is all speculative, right? So I mean, said he felt dizzy, stood up, turned around, and saw himself still lying in bed. So he almost had like an out-of-body experience.
Gotcha.
It's crazy.
He was aware the person in bed was him and was not willing to get up, and would thus make himself late for work. Furious at the prone self, the man shouted at it, shook it, and even jumped on it, all to no avail. To complicate things further, his awareness of being in a body would shift from one body to the other. So he would like shift perspective from the guy in the bed to the guy on top.
Oh, what
So
the fuck?
like switching cameras.
Yeah,
Isn't that I thought that was pretty insane.
that's nuts, dude.
Yeah.
I never
and
heard of
so,
something like that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about astral projection?
To be honest,
yeah.
I kind of believe in it. Just because I had something similar happen to me once when I was still living at the house. And this was like a long time ago. I think I was dating Karina at the time, and I just remember I woke up and I like saw myself in bed. Like I was looking down at myself, and like I remember what I was wearing that night. You know, I was wearing like one of my video game shirts and my boxer shorts, and then Karina was sleeping right next to me, and I saw me lying there, her lying there, and then I just saw myself like in bed, but I was asleep. My eyes weren't open, and it was quite terrifying. And then like I woke up screaming. It was pretty intense.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
That's fucking scary. Yeah, if that ever happened to me, my creepy ass would have my eyes open while I'm asleep, and I'd be like, "Oh, this guy's creepy." We all know that
Well, I mean,
happens.
part of the reason I'm a little skeptical about it is because if I was astral projecting, would my eyes be open? I don't know. I don't know how that shit works.
Yeah.
To be honest, I just thought my eyes would be open, but maybe not.
I don't know. David sleeps with his eyes open half the time.
Sometimes, yeah. I
You
can't
do,
control-
David. It's creepy, especially since you cross your arms.
That I trained myself to do over the years, to cross my arms like this. But
You sleep? Hold on. You sleep like that?
He does.
Yeah.
Have you never seen him sleep?
I don't remember. I don't know.
The first time I saw that, I thought I might have to drive a stake through his heart.
He just like
Seriously, with
what
his
a
eyes
fucking
open,
weirdo, dude.
arms crossed.
Dude, there's so many times that people like I'll be asleep like this, like comfortably asleep, like just fine and everything, and I wake up to people like poking my eye or like looking at me, and I get weirded out. I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing?" They're like, "Oh, we're just watching you sleep or trying to close your eyes. You had your eyes open." I'm like, "Get the fuck away from me, you weirdo! Like, don't do that. Just let me sleep."
What's up, Jessica? What's up,
I,
Kev?
I get really creeped out when people do that to me. So it's weird that you said that. Let's see, how the guy earlier in George's little tale that he was saying with the guy kind of feeling faint and kind of passing out.
Mhm.
One of the stories of a doppelganger that it's sort of like a doppelganger, but also could have. It's kind of hard to tell with this one, but Abraham Lincoln actually was a big believer in the spiritual world and kind of the paranormal and things.
I actually came across that story too, but go ahead.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah, go
All right.
go with it. Go
So
with
this
it.
was shortly after. I think it was like the night of his election after he got elected in 1860.
Oh no, he was the 16th president, so
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
yeah. Do the math. You're not Pierce. Do something. Anyways, so during the night of the first election, after all the celebration and everything, Abraham Lincoln was exhausted and kind of wanted to just step away from it all and go rest. So he goes to lay on his couch in the living room, whatever. And as he goes to lay down, he opens his eyes, and there's a mirror in the living room. But when he looks at his reflection, there's two of him. There's another one that's standing sort of like this behind him, right? And he has like a very pale and very gaunt face, pretty much how Abraham Lincoln looked near
But pale.
the time of his death.
He looks sickly.
Sickly, pale. Have you guys seen photos in comparison to when he first became president to at the end of his term?
No.
No.
There's a drastic change on his face, dude. His
I mean,
face
that happens
became-
when you fight vampires, though.
that and the stress that you have on the nation about being at civil war, so he quickly got up and like turned around and nothing was there. So then he's like thought it was strange, and so he sits back down and goes to lay down, looks at the mirror again, and that same vision that he sees of himself standing there, thing gets up and looks around, and nothing. He thought it was the strangest thing. He ended up telling his wife, Mary Todd, and she was a bigger believer in the paranormal, and she would constantly hold seances at the White House, and he told her about that, and she said that what she believed was the message that whatever it was trying to get across to him, that he would be elected for a second term, but he would not live through to see his second term end, which oddly enough he died, I think 3 months after his second term when he was assassinated, which was another strange story that I read about him. He went to sleep. He had a dream one night, and in this dream he was walking around several rooms of the White House, and all throughout the White House he heard the sounds of people crying. And room by room he goes in, he's trying to figure out where the crying's coming from, and he finally gets to the last room. And there's a crowd of people standing around the bed, and he said there's a body on the bed with a shroud over it. And all these people are crying, and he doesn't know what's going on. So he walks up, and he asks one of the soldiers, he's like, "Hey, why is everyone crying?" The soldier's like, the soldier says, "Oh, it's the body of the president. He was assassinated."
What?
Yeah, dude, swear to God. So Abraham Lincoln told people these things, and that's why we are aware of them. But, it's up to you, because there's a lot of other famous historical figures that have had strange occurrences that are like foreshadowing their death, or even a doppelganger of sorts. Did you guys read the story of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe?
No.
He was a
No.
18th century German poet and writer and politician. And one of his accounts was he was walking along this path, and in the distance he sees like someone on horseback, coming towards him. And as it gets closer and closer, he looks and he sees that it's him on the horse, like it's his doppelganger kind of thing.
Mm.
And like as it's about to get in well enough range, the figure just vanishes, and he's like, "Oh fuck," kind of plays it off like nothing happened. So 8 years later, he somehow finds himself on the same path, except this time he's the one on the horse and he's riding back, and then that's why he remembers. He's like, "Wait a minute, I remember this pathway." Like he was the one. It was him on the horse,
No
and he
way.
was wearing the exact same thing that
That's
he saw the figure. It's creepy,
It's pretty
right?
creepy. Yeah, it's creepy. That's
You know,
Uh,
I didn't think that there was like a negative connotation with doppelgangers. Yeah, I just thought doppelganger was like, hey, you know, I saw somebody who looked like you. I swear they're your doppelganger. Like that's all I knew about it.
Yeah, I always just never liked the idea of there being two of me existing at the same time.
I don't think anybody likes that idea, David.
No, I don't. Yeah, that's why I really want to kill myself. Like, if I ever come across myself, I'm like that guy. I know I'm the evil one for sure, so it doesn't really make a difference to me. There was another story of Émilie Sagui. She was a French teacher in the 17th century, and she had, in 16 years, she had to change 19 different schools because of this issue that she had with the doppelganger. People kept seeing an apparition of her, and it was very distracting to the students. At first, it was rather distracting and kind of strange, but as the occurrences became like more and more frequent, the figure had almost a mind of its own kind of thing. So, like some of the first cases of one of the schools that she was at, while she was sitting down, you know, doing paperwork, and all the kids were taking tests or whatever, a spitting image of her would just come out of her body and manifest itself along the chalkboard and start writing things on the chalkboard. And all this time, all these people kept saying that they kept seeing her, and there's like, look, you know, there's you standing behind you, kind of thing. She never saw her other doppelganger, or she never saw her doppelganger herself, kind of thing. So, entire schools, classes, teachers, like everyone kept seeing her figure over and over again. There was another report of her being at the cafeteria while she was sitting down eating. The same thing. Her apparition appeared behind her and was mimicking her movements as she was eating, kind of thing. One of the stories was, you know, one of the kids kind of got the balls to like walk through it and like touch it, but it was just like it was heavy fabric, like it was like a ghost, you know.
You mean so it wasn't like a fog? It was like it was tangible, right?
Somewhat tangible, but I guess it was kind of like fog. I know it was kind of hard to explain, like given, you know, the story back then. But yeah, she ended up moving so many schools. She was one of the, I think, bigger stories that I know of as far as doppelganger goes, because this wasn't just like a one-time occurrence or anything. This is something that kept like it followed her around and it plagued her for like all her life.
Wow.
So that was pretty strange. Josh, did you come up with get any stories that you want to read?
No. I mean, I read like I read a bunch of stuff, but it was like the overall point of what doppelgangers were. It wasn't specific stories that I read.
Oh, you didn't find any specifics. George, did you?
I didn't find too many specific. A lot of the websites had basically the same thing as like doppelgangers were like a living double, or it usually had malicious or mischievous intent and whatnot. I thought this was a little interesting. So you remember the movie Us, right?
I remember
Us by Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't watch it.
Yeah. So his thing's interesting. I'm gonna read a little bit off of someone who wrote this article. It just says The Hollywood Reporter. So according to Peele, the concept behind the monsters of Us called the Tethered come from the idea that we're our own worst enemy. He has said he wanted to explore duality, the connections between characters and their counterparts. The title itself is as likely to refer to the relationship between twin spirits as a relationship between family members. So over time, doppelgangers have alternately been viewed as either malicious or mischievous entities that instill ugly thoughts and offer misleading advice. They may be portents of doom or bad luck. Doubles could be shape-shifting demons, ghostly twins, or the result of astral projection or bilocation, a phenomenon in which an individual can be in two places at once. Doppelgangers might not cast a shadow or have a reflection, and their faces aren't quite right. And then I read a little bit further down. They have this within folklore, the Norse Vardogr and Finnish Etienen represent a
Yeah,
ghostly counterpart of a living person. So I don't know if you came across any of that, David.
I did.
It's a so a Vardogr is from the Norse mythology and is also known as a Vardival or Vardiger.
I couldn't pronounce any of that shit.
Yeah, I can't pronounce any of that. It's a spirit predecessor in Scandinavian folklore. Stories typically include instances that are nearly deja vu in substance, but in reverse, where a spirit with the subject's footsteps, voice, scent, or appearance and overall demeanor precedes them in a location or activity, resulting in witness believing they've seen or heard the actual person before the person physically arrives. This bears a subtle difference from a doppelganger with a less sinister connotation. It has been likened to being a phantom double or a form of bilocation. So, and it just says in Finnish folklore, the concept is known as the Aitianen. These words are really hard to pronounce. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they're I guess yeah, every culture has its own version of a doppelganger, but this one seems more like deja vu.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, which
Well,
I thought that
I
was
read
kinda
a
cool.
story similar to that where this guy, he like came into his house because he took the car to go to the liquor store or something like that, and then his family didn't know that he was gone, or but he ended up showing up, and he got into the house and he like excused himself and said, I need to use the restroom, and then the actual him came through the door a minute ago, or a minute later, I mean. So he comes in and they're like, what are you doing? Like, you just went to the bathroom. And then his sister like ran and burst open the bathroom door and there was nobody in there.
yeah,
Fuck.
I heard about that story. Yeah. So there was
That's
another
crazy.
article that I read. This one was posted by a user on I forget what website I was on, but the story was titled "The Cemetery Mimic." Um, this story went back. It was pretty recent, I believe, but it takes place in Mexico. Um, where this guy, him and his friends, they would go to this very old cemetery. The cemetery has been there like for years because when people can't afford to bury, their family members or whatever, they would just take them to this cemetery and kind of, you know, low key kind of do it for free and shit like that. Just bury their bodies there, give them some sort of respectable burying or burial. So him and his friends would go there and kind of like hang out and wander around and whatever. And he said that there was the graveskeeper who lived there, and he went to approach them. He's like, "Hey, so what are you guys doing here?" They're like, "Oh, we're just kind of like walking around, whatever." He's like, "All right, well, you punks better not get into anything, crazy." He's like, "I have to hear all weird sorts of things at night. Like, I'm just trying to sleep. I like live right there in that little house, kind of thing." So then he thought nothing of it. So years go by, and he's in high school now. He goes back there again with his sort of newer group of friends that kind of get in a little bit more trouble with drinking and stuff like that. So same thing, they end up finding the cemetery, and he's like, "Oh man, I haven't been here in a while." So then they kind of fool around, hanging out, drinking at the cemetery. Same the gravekeeper comes, and he approaches them. And he's like, "Hey," he said, "what are you kids doing here? Like, you shouldn't be here." And then he points the guy out, the writer of the story. He's like, "I remember you." He said, "What did I tell you? Spirits tend to follow you around, so you need to be careful." And he's like, "What?" And then I forgot how the rest of it finished off, but when they leave, he was saying, his friends were saying that how they would see his doppelganger around town. Like, they would see him, it was him exactly, but he had this very evil look in his eyes. And whenever they would like try to get his attention, he would just stare at them, wouldn't smile, wouldn't wink back or anything like that. And he wasn't like all too sure about all this. So then when he finally like went home and he told his sister and like what was going on, she's like, "Yeah, I've seen a couple of them around too. There was one night you came home late, and instead of going to your room, you went into the living room, and you laid on the couch for a little bit, and you started like thrashing around and ripping off your clothes like a wild animal.
The fuck?
And then I went to go
Jesus.
check up on you, And then when she got to the living room, she saw that no one was there. That's when he really came out of his room to, go to the kitchen. She's like, what the fuck? Like, he never left the house.
Damn.
Shit.
So there were some really weird, obviously, tales coming from Mexico are the creepiest shits ever, because Mexico is really old and there's nothing creepy as shit.
Yeah, they have a lot of crazy stories coming out of there.
Yeah.
All right, well, I feel like I learned a lot more about doppelgangers today.
Josh, you ever run into yourself?
Huh?
I said if you ever run into yourself, make sure to kill yourself.
Do it. So what do you think about next week? I honestly, like a 30-minute episode, I think we could do this more often than just once a week. But anyway, let's think about some other topics. In the chat, if you guys want to let us know about a topic, David likes to keep it creepy on the paranormal stuff.
Or
I think I have some ideas.
Conspiracy theories.
I think we should
extraterrestrial.
really dive into Edgar Casey.
Ooh,
that'd be a good topic. Right. Actually, we could. How about we do the Halloween setup for the Speakeasy Gentleman, the one that Vader did for us, and then we see if we could get the medium on this show.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That would be cool.
That might work a little bit better, and then we have 4 spots.
Okay.
All right, but I think maybe we'll dive into Edgar Casey with her on if we could get her, and we'll think about a different topic. But yeah, I think that's good.
Also, before we get out, it's actually Elizabeth's birthday today.
Oh shit! Why is she not on?
Yeah.
I thought she was being in the chat. So
all right.
Either way,
did you tell her about the show?
I did.
Here we go. Okay. See you guys next week.
Birthday.
Yeah. Well, we got to. Edgar Casey. You want to talk about him?
Yep. If not, follow us on Speakeasy Gentleman at YouTube or Facebook, and we'll let you know what the topic is next week. Good night.
Good night, guys.